He thought she was just another black woman he could intimidate and walk away like nothing happened. But this time, it would cost him everything. As we dive into this story, don't forget to like the video and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe for more powerful ones. It was late, 10:47 p.m. on a Wednesday night, just outside Cincinnati, Ohio. The highway was quiet, blanketed in low fog, the kind that makes streetlights glow like halos in the distance. Lieutenant Colonel Malaya Brooks was behind the wheel of her black government-issued SUV, headed home after a long day at a base leadership seminar nearly 120 miles away. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't swerving. Her cruise control was locked in at 62. The dashboard was clear, the music low, and her posture steady, just like everything else about her. Malaya was a woman who'd commanded troops in 2 combat zones, delivered logistics in crisis-stricken countries, and never once raised her voice to prove her point. She didn't need to. So when the flashing red and blue lights lit up behind her without warning, she didn't panic. She simply exhaled, eased to the shoulder, and came to a smooth stop. Calm. Controlled. The patrol car's door slammed hard. In her side mirror, she watched him approach. Sergeant Cole Maddox, tall, wide-shouldered, walking like someone who enjoyed being in charge. His flashlight beam bounced around before settling directly on her window. One hand rested on his belt, too close to the holster. The other tapped the glass. Malaya rolled the window down halfway, kept both hands on the wheel, and said clearly, "Good evening, officer. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" Maddox didn't answer right away. He angled the light right into her eyes, squinting. "You were drifting. Crossed over the line. Could be signs of impairment." Malaya's brows knit slightly. "I haven't been drinking. I've been driving with cruise control on for the past 80 miles. License and registration," he snapped, ignoring her explanation. His tone had already shifted, gruff, clipped, asserting control for no reason other than to show he could. She moved slowly, deliberately, reaching into the glove box. "This is a government vehicle," she said calmly. "I'm a federal employee. Here's my military ID." Maddox took it and glanced at the name. Lieutenant Colonel Malaya Brooks. His jaw tightened. "Military, huh? That doesn't put you above the law." She didn't flinch. "I never said it did." That should have been the end of it. A warning at most. But Maddox wasn't done. He stepped back and barked. "Step out of the vehicle." Malaya blinked once. "Excuse me?" "I said step out. I'm conducting a field sobriety check." She stared at him, stone still. Her tone remained steady. "I've complied. I haven't been drinking. On what grounds are you escalating this?" Maddox stepped in closer, his voice sharper. "So now you're refusing a lawful order?" "No," she said quietly. "I'm asking for clarification." That was the moment she knew she had to document this. No yelling. No threats. Just protection. She reached over, calmly unlocked her phone, and pressed record. "For the record, this interaction is now being documented," she said aloud. For the first time, Maddox hesitated. His eyes flicked to the phone. But his ego held firm, thinking what could she possibly do? Out of the car. Malaya stepped out. Her back straight. Her face unreadable. No protest. No defiance. Just presence. Under the foggy streetlight, he made her walk a straight line. He made her recite the alphabet backwards. He watched her every move like he was hoping she'd slip. But she didn't. She passed every test. Still, he handed her a citation. "Failure to maintain lane," he muttered. She took it without a word. Got back in her SUV. And pulled off into the night. But what Maddox didn't know was that the stop wasn't over. It had just begun. The next morning, the sun broke through Malaya Brooks' office window, lighting the clean, orderly desk she hadn't touched since the night before. The world outside moved like nothing had happened. But she hadn't slept. The stop played on repeat in her mind, not the citation, but the tone. The look in his eyes. The way his hand hovered near the weapon on his hip, like she was a threat, like all her calm, her credentials, her rank meant nothing. Malaya had faced danger before, real danger. IEDs in Kandahar. Militia ambushes in Liberia. Supply shortages in Haiti. She'd stared into chaos and never flinched. But this? This was different. Because this wasn't a battlefield. This was home. And yet somehow, she still had to prove she belonged here too. At 9:14 a.m., she opened her inbox. 3 flagged reports. 1 logistics handover. And a fresh internal memo from her legal advisor. But her eyes went to the video file. 2 minutes and 37 seconds. That's how long the stop lasted from when she hit record to when he gave her the citation. She watched it again, alone. No sound at first. Just the video. His tone. Her voice. The flashlight. The breath she took before getting out of the car. Then, with sound. And something in her chest tightened. It wasn't just the arrogance. It was the comfort with which he did it. Like it was routine. Like he'd done this before and expected her to fold. To shrink. To apologize. To comply without thought. She'd seen that before. Young soldiers pulled over on base for driving while black. Female officers interrogated when shopping out of uniform. Men who wore the flag overseas, only to be treated like suspects when they got home. And too many of them had told her the same thing afterward. I didn't want to make it worse. I figured it wouldn't go anywhere. It's just how things are. No, not this time. She picked up her phone and dialed the JAG office. The voice on the other end knew her immediately. Lieutenant Colonel Brooks. Everything all right? A pause. Not yet, she said. But I'm working on it. Within an hour, she filed a formal complaint. Not with the local department, she already knew how that would end. She went through the office of the Inspector General, naming Sergeant Cole Maddox directly and attaching both her phone footage and a written account of the entire stop. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't loud. It was precise. Measured. Documented. Sharp. Across town, Maddox was laughing in the break room. Fed chick thought flashing a badge would save her, he muttered to Officer Jansen. Did the whole I know my rights routine. Gave her a citation. That shut her up. Jansen chuckled, but not fully. You get her name? Yeah, Brooks, I think. Malaya Brooks. The room quieted. Another officer nearby raised a brow. Wait, that wasn't Colonel Brooks from the fort. Maddox blinked. She said she was military. I didn't check the rank. Now it was Jansen's turn to speak slowly. Dude, Colonel Brooks isn't just military. She's high-ranking. Taught ethics at the academy last year. Runs strategy for joint logistics. 2 deployments. Bronze Star. Maddox rolled his eyes. I don't care if she's the Secretary of Defense. On that road, I'm in charge. But his voice cracked, just a little. Because he could feel it too now. A shift in the room. A flicker of unease. Back at Fort Harlan, Malaya sat with Major Nina James, her closest confidant and fellow officer. You're really filing it? Nina asked softly. You know what this could stir up. Malaya didn't hesitate. It already stirred up. I'm not the one who started it. You think they'll listen? Take it seriously? Malaya looked out the window, past the drill field, past the flags. I don't need them to listen. I need it on record. A long pause. I've worn this uniform for 22 years. I've sent soldiers into fire, negotiated with generals, coordinated airdrops in war zones. But on that road, to him, I was just a black woman in a black SUV. Her voice didn't break. But Nina saw the pain in her eyes. This isn't just about me, Malaya said. It's about every time we bite our tongue. Every time we decide to let it go. Every time we walk away because it's easier than being labeled angry, or difficult, or another complaint. And that's why she didn't go to the press. Didn't make noise on social media. Didn't rally her troops. She just kept showing up. Prepared. Calm. Relentless. And while Maddox went on with his patrols, business as usual, the video file she recorded was already being passed through military channels, marked sensitive, federal interest. The Department of Justice had received the formal notification. The Lucas County Civil Court had issued a case ID, and a civil suit was being drafted. Maddox hadn't even realized yet. But the storm was already coming. And this time, it wouldn't be loud. It would be undeniable. 3 weeks later, Lucas County Civil Court. The hallways were polished but tense, filled with the low murmurs of attorneys, clerks, and watchers who weren't sure what kind of case they were about to witness. Lieutenant Colonel Malaya Brooks stood outside Courtroom 3C, her reflection calm in the glass doors. She wore her Army service uniform, pressed, dignified, every ribbon and bar on her chest earned the hard way. She didn't wear it for theatrics. She wore it for the same reason she always had, to tell the truth without saying a word. Behind her stood Major Nina James, silent. At her side, Attorney Delaney Price, a federal civil rights litigator with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. Inside the courtroom, Sergeant Cole Maddox was already seated. Gray suit. Blank expression. But his hands were restless, clenching and unclenching under the table. His lawyer, Graham Lott, whispered in his ear, "Don't react. Don't volunteer. Don't give them more than you have to." Maddox nodded once, but his jaw was tight. When Malaya entered the room, everything shifted. The bailiff didn't need to announce her rank. Everyone saw it. And for a brief second, Maddox's eyes dropped. The judge, Honorable Lisa Moreno, mid-50s, no nonsense, sat straight-backed on the bench. This court is now in session. Case #22CV4709, Brooks vs. Maddox. Allegation: unlawful stop, detainment, abuse of power, and violation of constitutional rights. Delaney Price stood, confident but measured. Your Honor, we intend to show that the plaintiff, Lieutenant Colonel Malaya Brooks, was not only wrongfully stopped by Sergeant Maddox, but that she was treated with undue suspicion, hostility, and intimidation, despite full compliance and lack of any probable cause. We will show that this was not a mistake, but a pattern, and that the badge, in this case, was used not as a shield of protection, but as a weapon of ego. The courtroom fell silent. Malaya took the stand first. Her voice was even, her posture perfect. She told her story not with anger, but with precision. I was traveling back from a command meeting, approximately 10:47 p.m. I was pulled over without cause. I was accused of impairment. I was subjected to a sobriety test despite no signs of inebriation. Delaney asked, "Were you cooperative?" "Yes." "Did you resist in any way?" "No." "Did you identify yourself as a federal employee?" "I did." I also informed him that I was in a government-issued vehicle. And his response? "He told me that didn't put me above the law." Then came the video. First, her phone footage. Then the body cam. Every second played before the court. They saw Maddox's tone. They heard his dismissiveness. They saw her measured response. They saw the flashlight in her eyes. The field test. The smirk. The silence when she passed. And most importantly, they saw how none of it was necessary. Lott, Maddox's attorney, stood slowly for cross. "Lieutenant Colonel Brooks, is it possible that the officer was simply doing his job?" He escalated without cause. "You say you weren't impaired, but isn't it the officer's discretion to determine whether a test is necessary?" "Discretion must be paired with discipline," she said, voice calm. "And discipline means you don't treat compliance like defiance." Lott tried again. "You turned on your phone. Isn't that antagonistic?" "No," she replied. "It's survival." Her words didn't rise, but they cut deeper than anything shouted. Then it was Maddox's turn. He didn't testify. His lawyer feared what might come out. Instead, Delaney approached during closing arguments and cut straight through the tension. Sergeant Maddox didn't see a lieutenant colonel that night. He didn't see a public servant. He didn't see someone who'd served her country with honor and restraint. He saw a black woman who dared to ask a question. And instead of answering, he punished her for it. She let the silence linger. The jury was still. That badge doesn't grant you power. It grants you responsibility. And when that responsibility is abused, the entire system pays for it. Final statements ended. The judge recessed. The jury deliberated. 3 days passed. Malaya returned to Fort Harlan. She worked like always. Quiet. Professional. No fanfare. But she knew, this wasn't about personal victory. It was about truth on the record. When the verdict was read, she wasn't in uniform. She wore a navy blue blouse. Neat. Simple. Civilian. In the matter of Brooks v. Maddox. The foreperson began. We find in favor of the plaintiff. The courtroom didn't erupt. No headlines. No crowd cheers. Just Maddox, sinking into his chair. And Malaya, exhaling for the first time in weeks. The court awarded her $35,000 in damages. But more importantly, the judge ordered that a full report be sent to the DOJ and Toledo PD for review of Sergeant Maddox's conduct. Outside, reporters waited, microphones ready. Malaya said only one thing. This was never about revenge. It was about accountability. And sometimes the most powerful protest is to keep your tone steady and tell the truth anyway. It didn't happen all at once. No big headlines. No national outrage. Just a slow, quiet unraveling of the myth that Sergeant Cole Maddox had built around himself for 15 years. The verdict became public record within 24 hours. The Toledo Police Department issued a vague press statement about retraining protocols and internal evaluations. Behind closed doors, Maddox was placed on administrative leave, the kind that usually ends with a quiet resignation. He walked into the station one last time with his badge clipped to his chest and a cardboard box in his hand. There were no handshakes. No send-off. Just lowered eyes and silence. Because now, everyone had seen the footage. And no one, not even the rookies who once feared him, would ever look at him the same. At Fort Harlan, life went on. Malaya Brooks didn't celebrate. She didn't take interviews or pose for photos. She showed up. Led morning briefings. Signed requisitions. Checked in on her unit. To her, the trial wasn't a victory, it was a necessary stand. And she didn't take it for herself. She took it for every soldier who had swallowed their pride. Every woman who had been talked over. Every black person who had been told to just comply and move on. Every public servant who had served with dignity only to be treated like a threat in their own country. 2 months later, Malaya was standing at the front of a quiet auditorium filled with young recruits. Fresh uniforms, nervous energy, open minds. She wasn't there to talk about battle tactics or logistics. She was there to talk about something deeper. Leadership, character, and what power really means. She stood still for a moment, then asked, "How many of you believe the badge or the rank on your chest earns you automatic respect?" A few hands rose, slowly. Hesitant. She nodded. "I understand why you think that. But let me tell you the truth." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Respect isn't something you wear. It's something you earn, every single day. In how you speak. In how you listen. In how you carry the weight of authority. The room stilled. Because authority without discipline isn't leadership. It's intimidation. And that's not why we wear this uniform. She paused, looking at the young faces in the front row. "A few months ago, I was pulled over by an officer who forgot that truth. He didn't see my credentials. He didn't hear my voice. He only saw someone who didn't submit fast enough." She let the silence breathe. "I could have yelled. I could have cursed. I could have let it go." She looked around. "I didn't do any of those things. I recorded. I filed. I showed up. And I told the truth. Not because I was angry, but because silence protects the wrong people." When she stepped down from the podium, no one clapped. They just sat there, thinking, soaking it in. And that was enough. Because Malaya wasn't there to inspire applause. She was there to pass on the quiet strength she had learned to carry. The kind of strength that doesn't seek revenge. It seeks correction. Sergeant Cole Maddox never returned to active duty. He quietly resigned under policy review. The DOJ launched an investigation into similar complaints tied to his past stops. And though no criminal charges were filed, his record would never be clean again. For the first time, accountability had caught up. But the true legacy wasn't written in that courtroom. It was written in the next stop. The next officer who thought twice. The next woman who hit record. The next young soldier who remembered that integrity is louder than ego. And it was written in the stillness of Malaya's voice when she said, "You don't have to raise your voice to demand respect. Sometimes the quietest stance speaks the loudest." Let this story remind us. Power means nothing without accountability. And courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it just refuses to stay silent. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire, challenge, and stay with you.